I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. I'm really excited. I'm excited every time she comes on, even though she makes me feel stupid. But she's written a bang up report. She's doing it for subscribers only. It's very detailed. It's you've got to read it two or three times. You've heard some of it here before, but it's called "The State of Our Currencies," and the person I'm talking about is Catherine Austin Fitz. I get the title right. "The State of Our Currencies."
The state of our currencies, and the
That's right.
subtitle is the end of currencies.
Correct. Which I had a nice woman come on, very nice, and a lot of people think this way, and it's not just because she's a woman. Guys have said the same thing. Hey, in 6 months, in next year, this will all be behind us, and everything will be all behind us, and everything will be back to normal. And I think we're just getting started, and I think you do too. I want to start with something pretty basic, and that is, why the heck do we have this change shortage around the country? And nobody's been able to answer that. And I asked you in the pre-interview, and you said, "Oh no, here's the answer." So let's start with, why do we have the change shortage around the country?
Okay, so we're in a process of what I would describe as a global reset. The entire financial system is being resetted. And there are two aspects of it, Greg. One is extending the old system, and then the second is bringing in the new system. And it's very much being done on the fly by trial and error. But the new system is 100% digital. One of the quotes I use in State of Our Currencies is a quote I used during the financial crisis, that Mr. Global doesn't care if you call it dollars or yen or wampum beads. He just wants it 100% digital. So by if you look at the Fed balance sheet, John Titus just did a great video on the coin shortage, and he shows the Fed balance sheet. Their coin position has gone up. It's on the asset side, because the U.S. Mint and the Treasury make the coins. Anyway, they have more coins than they did last year by a not insignificant amount. I think what they're just doing is they're pulling it in. One is for a lot of the big retail companies, they can make more money if they refuse to give change, and people say, "Oh, just keep the 10 cents." So part of it, there's more profit in it for them. But I think that the Fed is doing everything they can to get everybody to go all digital without mandating all digital.
So they're basically, and just so I get this for my own weak-minded little brain here, they're basically holding the change. They're not letting it out. People are saying, "Oh, it's because of COVID and the change isn't going through the economy." No, they're just holding. The Fed is just holding the change, the Treasury.
I not holding. If you look at the quotas they're putting out, the reports from the bank is, we can't give you as much as we normally do. So they're shrinking it. They're steadily shrinking the coins, is what it appears to be. And I would write. We just put it up at Solari, the video on coin shortage, and I think it does a great job of sort of explaining and looking at the numbers. But if the Fed's sitting with more coins on its balance sheet than it had last year, it doesn't look to me like there's a shortage.
The other thing is, you got this bang up report on the state of our currencies, and we're not going to get to it all. I'm sorry, we can't. It's too detailed. And you pay me nothing for this. I don't get anything from anybody. But I say, if you really want to see this report, it's worth signing up for Solari for a month or 2 months or whatever it is. Just worth signing up for Solari. Period. There's a lot of great stuff on there. But the state of our currencies. So we're going all digital. Even with all this money printing, this massive amount of money printing, they want to take it all digital. So here's my next question to you. You said, and this is one of the first times for years, she's like, "You need enough money to bribe the guards." Yes, it's a core asset, gold, silver. Yes, all that. Last year and this year, you said gold's going to have a good year. And this year, particularly, you said gold's going to go up, because
Right.
I interviewed you a few months ago. You said gold was going to go up. Bing, 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 bing. Catherine Austin Fitz, correct. Are we going to continue to see that, and why? Are we going to continue to see gold and silver and tangible assets go up, and why?
Right. So the central bankers at the Jackson Hole last year, so August 2019, approved the going direct plan. And the Fed started to intervene in the markets in September. And then when the Treasury market melted down in March, it basically stepped into the long end of the Treasury market and started a new round of QE. And if you look at the extent of that, it's extraordinarily inflationary. And And that's because this time around, the Fed's not just doing, $3 trillion of QE. When you think about it, the Fed did in 3 or 4 months what it took them 3 to 5 years to do during the so-called financial crisis. So that's an extraordinary amount, but you combine it with fiscal stimulus because the Fed is now buying the treasuries and holding up the long end of the treasury market, and the treasury sending checks out to Main Street. So we're seeing that money very much go into the economy in a way that is extraordinarily inflationary. Well, how do you offset that? One of the ways you offset that is you shut down Main Street. So by shutting down and cratering small business, you had a fair amount of deflationary pressure. But still, with that much money's going to start going to real assets. And when you look at what the growing direct reset is doing, people are looking at this, Greg, and they're saying, not only is this going to be inflationary, but we're very nervous about the rule of law because you're bringing in extraordinary police powers. If you look at what they're doing under the pretext of a pandemic, this is tyranny. And so I think part of the push on gold is the inflation, but I think the other push on gold is people saying, I want something that I can put in my pocket and walk away with. I want something that's not digital.
And you think this trend is going to continue? Why?
Absolutely, because the inflationary trends are going to continue. If you look at our theme this week on money and markets, it's the Fed buys the U.S. And it's not just the Fed buying the U.S., the Fed's buying the world. So if you print money and basically, because coming out of the going direct approval, you had all the big private equity firms and BlackRock, who's very much in the middle of running the reset, basically lined up to go in and buy. And when you pulled the plug on the economy, you're watching all the vultures swoop in. There's an incredible amount of what I would call disaster capitalism going on. So, we've just begun a process of re-engineering the financial system and moving from a world of markets and currencies to a world of what I would describe as technocracy with a crypto control system. Crypto's not a currency, it's a control system. It's a credit at the company store. And if you look at where they want to go, their vision of where they want to go is so dark. I think the more people recognize it and see it, the more they're going to want simple assets that they can control that are not digital and try and keep them outside the system. So whether, globally, whether it's in the G7 nations or in the G20 in China, I think the pressure is going to be on to have precious metals.
Silver is at 27, 28, 29, which was up from 16, 17, 18, 19. Gold is done very well. It's in the 19s and 2000s. They're trying to smack it around. You're having these big swings.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, total return year to date, gold's up 27%, silver's up 47% on the Wednesday close. So both very good year. Yeah.
Would you be a buyer? Would you be a buyer here? I mean, somebody was telling me, says, well, if you look at silver, it's up a lot, but it was in 2011, it was $50. In 1980, it was $50 for a short amount of time. He said, so, you're not really at the
So,
where would you be a buyer?
So I have an article at Solari called "What Percentage of My Assets Should I Hold in Precious Metals?" And the first thing I would do is go read that. So I define a precious metals holding as two portions. One is your core position, and one is an investment position. So a core position is what I call, it's the money you use to bribe the border guards. So it's central bank insurance. If you've ever talked to any of the families who got out of Germany at the end, because they had gold buried in the backyard. So it's resources for the worst case, that you can put in your pocket, walk away. So your core position is insurance. It's not really an investment. And if you don't have your core position, I describe how to calculate your core position in that article. If you don't have your core position, I would get it relatively quickly. Everybody should have their core position. The second thing is,
wait, stop.
I do think gold is an attractive.
Hold on just a second.
Yeah?
Why would you get the core position relatively quickly before we move on to the investment position? Why would you get the core position in precious metals quickly?
The same way, if I don't have auto insurance but I'm driving around, I would want to get insurance quickly. So the core position is for the worst case, and I'm not smart enough to know if the worst case is coming tomorrow or, in a year or in never. Do you see what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So I don't know that I'm going to have a car accident next week, but I don't want to drive without auto insurance. So
You need
same
insurance.
reason, I'd like to have my car.
Okay.
You need insurance.
Okay.
So now, because we've gotten a big run up so far this year, you might want to average in, but I would just say, I would be diligent about making sure you get your core position if you don't have it. So the second thing, now, I will say this, as I've always said before, it's a lot more important than you eat than you have precious metals. So, if you don't have a source of great local food and you don't have a greenhouse and you have the capacity to build that, I would do that first. So I'm not saying that your core position in precious metals is the only asset, is the number one asset. So, because I think self-sufficiency is the best asset you can have, or certainly resiliency. Okay, so for your investment asset, I think it's an attractive investment asset, but there are other attractive investment assets. So you have to calculate, what allocation you want to put in precious metals. Now, precious metals has run up, but I think we're in a long-term bull market, because if you look at what the central bankers intend to print, they've only begun.
Wow.
So, inflation is upon us, and if you look at the tyranny that they're working on delivering, I think most people don't realize how hideous some of the plans they're coming up with are. So the tyranny that's coming and the printing that's coming is greater than what we've seen so far. And that says to me all real assets are going to be the beneficiary vis-a-vis fixed income and the and paper denominated in fiat currency.
I'm taking notes. Good.
Now,
what would you tell people to do?
Let me just say two things, because
Go ahead. Sorry.
There are deflationary forces at work, and one is, even though if you look at how much subsidy has been injected into the economy, it doesn't look from the numbers like personal income is down, but in fact for millions of families personal income is way down, and the pain has been delayed. If you just look at the next 4 months, we could get in the United States 11 to 15 million evictions and even more foreclosures starting in process. So there's a lot of pain coming, and if you look at that pain or their ability, the rumors are there's going to be another 3 to 6 month shutdown this year, so or starting this year. If that should happen, that's going to be exceptionally deflationary. The other thing is new technology is exceptionally deflationary. So there are many aspects to the environment. They're printing, but there are many aspects to the environment where they're engineering deflation.
And when they say deflation, people just going out of business. Restaurants going out of business. Companies going out of business. Just
Right.
people. I mean,
Right.
If movie theaters.
44% of the American economy is small business. I think it's higher in Europe. It's about 50-50. But if you basically shut down small business and small enterprise and try to shut down small farms, that's a huge amount of deflation.
Yeah. What do people do? How are they supposed to protect themselves? Let's get to that. This is going to be a terribly long interview today. I mean, your gold, silver, food. How are people supposed to protect themselves? I mean, that's what. But what does the little guy do?
So everybody's different, okay? And that's, what I find is different people with different skills in different parts of the country. Everybody's different. The first thing you want to do is, it's very important that you and your skills are useful. So you want to be doing things that generate an income or generate the ability to barter and trade with other people. So you want to do everything you can to continue some economic activity that provides you with sustenance one way or another. You want to very much focus your time on building resilient capacity for food and health. Anything you can do to support and grow a local food system and get excellent local food, The problem is not just that the price of food is going to go up. The problem, Greg, is a lot of the food at the store is not going to be trustworthy. So anything you can do to provide fresh local food and do as much as you can through healthcare, which is natural and economic and alternative. So try to build as much local resiliency and do it yourself. 20 years ago, it made economic sense to go into the marketplace, have a job, pay your taxes, get dressed, go to work, and then come home and pay somebody else to do your plumbing for you. Now it makes a lot of economic sense to do as much for yourself as you can. And to do that requires always building skills. Okay, so the first thing I would do is build as much local and do-it-yourself resiliency as you possibly can, and network with other people to do that. The second thing I would do is make sure that everyone you're engaged with economically or financially has high integrity. Stop banking at banks that don't have high integrity. Stop doing business with organizations that don't have it. Get everybody out of your life who doesn't have integrity, because we're basically entering into a war period, and it's dangerous. You can't afford to have, sort of dirty players in your life, because they can make all sorts of trouble. So, number 2, just clean out integrity. The third thing is you need to focus on your investments. You can do real estate, you can do high quality equities, you can do precious metals, you can hold cash, and you can do local investments, including your own business. But you've got to focus on things that are real and things that can endure in this environment. Now, one of the biggest issues I run into with people is you'll get people who really believe in financing their own prison. We have a group of companies and a group of players who are absolutely engineering the end of currencies, and the system they want to take us to, in my opinion, is a slavery system. I really don't want to make money financing my own prison. If you look at how I was taught and raised in business by some of the top guys on Wall Street, we never financed our enemies. So, the one big issue, it's one of the reasons I stopped being an investment advisor. I'm not interested in making money helping my enemies build my own prison. So, a lot of the biotech companies I have no interest in.
I want you to go back to this thought you just said. I want you to expand on it. You said we were entering into a war, and in the pre-interview you talked about a spiritual war, and I said Ephesians 6:12, and you said, "Oh, absolutely, right. Demons." Talk about that. Oh. I mean, what the people I see doing, kicking people in the head, dragging them out of their cars, shooting them in the head for saying all lives matter. In Indianapolis, that woman out there died. Demons. We used to throw out demons in Christ's time. We don't do that anymore. Talk about the war we are going into. So
I think there are many different layers, but this is what World War III looks like. And I'm going to grossly oversimplify. For many decades, the G7 nations have basically gone into the third world and subsidized their way of life by playing rough to get natural resources, so to speak, and engaging in wars. The U.S., I think, has started 30 wars. 13 wars in the last 30 years, some exceptional number. So we've been very aggressive and very violent about subsidizing our way of life at the cost of the third world. Now, the chickens are coming home to roost, and now it's coming back, and the people running things who are centralizing economic power and control are saying, we don't want to share the subsidy anymore with the general population. And basically what the financial coup d'etat was, and you and I have talked about this a lot, was they pulled all the money out of the economy, and now they're ready to basically ratchet down and leave the population relatively high and dry. So now's the end game on the financial coup d'etat, and that's what we're watching. So if the average American had income of $65,000 a year, the global reset is going to bring that number way, way down. And the question is, how are they going to manage the population going there? And they want to use a tremendous amount of police powers. Now, they're selling those police powers right now by trying to justify them by a pandemic. But, that's a ruse. It's a way of marketing the global reset and radically reducing people's incomes. Now, what they'd like to do is, if they can get enough of the independent small businesses and independent economy shut down and get you and I dependent on government subsidy and all digital, then basically they'll say, okay, well, here's a crypto and here's your universal basic income. And, and you're going to get your crypto allocation, and that's your credit on the company store. And if you don't behave, we'll cut off your crypto. It's basically the mark of the beast. That's where they want to go.
Wow. And we have a war going on in the spiritual realm. I mean, I don't think it's, I mean, you said this in the pre-interview, so hopefully I'm not, disclosing, your Christianity
Right.
and your goodness, because you are a Christian and you are good. Go ahead. The war, spiritual.
But part of this is a spiritual war between good and evil. But part of that spiritual war then translates out into invisible technology like entrainment and mind control. So we are watching a group of people who are using very sophisticated technology, with the social media, with the digital media, and with the smartphones to basically implement evil. It's the only way I can describe it. It's very, very demonic. And you're watching as those forces, whether they're spiritual forces or, basically covert intelligence forces, as those two forces operate, it's making people more and more incoherent. And as they become more and more incoherent, they behave in incredible ways, and they literally get possessed. So one of the things I'm constantly trying to describe to the subscribers is, please do not try and have a rational conversation with somebody who's been possessed, whether demonically or by entrainment and subliminal programming. Either way, they're not there. I'm always telling people, if you're in Chuck E. Cheese and 30 adults start fighting in a brawl, what you need to know is, you're probably dealing with some kind of entrainment, mind control, and you just need to turn off your phone and get out of there. So we're talking, last year on the Solari Report, I did a 12-part series called Deep State Tactics, where I describe everything from spiritual to legal to financial, all the covert stuff, including beatdowns on neighborhoods like the kind we're seeing. I don't know. Did you see our Minneapolis map? Did I send you our maps of Minneapolis?
I think yes, I did. Or they were burning down certain areas of the city.
Right. So someone in Minneapolis put up all the different addresses of the buildings that have been burnt and looted, and we mapped it up. If you go to Solari and do a search for Minneapolis, you'll pull it up. It's public. And we mapped it, and suddenly we realized almost all the burnt buildings were right in a long row across Lake Boulevard in an opportunity zone. And I said, it's the old HUD redevelopment game. Here we go again. This is exactly what I cleaned up when I was assistant secretary. This is not looting. This is a redevelopment plan. So when you look at the maps, it's so clear. Because if you understand, if I'm a private equity firm and I'm buying up tremendous amounts of real estate, or I'm doing an opportunity fund and I'm buying up all that real estate and trying to get everybody, I'm not only trying to buy it and accumulate, but get everybody move out and tear it down. And do you have any idea how much money I save on my investment, how much I can kick up my returns if I just burn them all out, pull the buildings down by the looters, and then buy it, pick it up cheap, and everybody's already gone? Do you know what that does to my return on investment? It's fantastic.
And at the people that...
And I defund the police so I can use mercenaries to move everybody out.
Yeah. That's the other thing. Private security, I've heard, is growing by leaps and bounds. They're defunding the police, and then their private security is coming online. The sad thing about what you're talking about, though, is that most of the people that got burnt, half the businesses burned out were minority-owned businesses. So black lives in this case do not matter.
Right.
They don't care about black people, and black people are catching on.
Well,
I'm going to get your... Go ahead.
I think one of the goals of Black Lives Matter is to provide air cover to exactly that fact. Because I think they're planning. I think they are being, and they have been. But I think they're planning on being very rough on minority neighborhoods.
Oh, that's awful.
Especially if they're opportunity.
These are Democrats, basically. I mean, I'm running out of time. I want to listen. Number one, the state of the currencies. I just glanced over that, folks. Listen, it's 5 compact pages with charts and graphs, and they talk about the space race and controlling space and transhumanism.
If you
Go ahead.
If you print it out, I think it's like 87 pages.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 5 long compute. Okay, sorry. It's a long report. Okay, and we cannot go over this in the short amount of time. We just hit kind of the highlights. We're changing the currency. They're going all digital. They're going to have tyranny like never before, and what you should do about it. That's on the Solari Report.com. That's Solari.com. But I want to just move on. So listen. So I'm going to put the links to Solari. There's a lot of free stuff on there too. But this one's not, and you can see why, because you must have spent weeks on it. Yes. But anyway, I want to ask you about the election. Are they going to be able to cheat in? Go ahead.
Can I mention one other thing?
Go ahead. Yes,
there is a new report. There's a new report from Dr. Skidmore. It's up at missingmoney.solari.com, and you can link to it. We just did an interview with Mark on it, and I'm hoping you're going to have him on.
Yes.
So that is there, too, because it describes some of the real shenanigans in the Treasury market, and it's astonishing.
I had him on. He said there was, and I'm going to go the least amount, 90 trillion in churn. 90 trillion.
Right.
People don't even understand 90 trillion, 1,000 billion. I mean, 90 trillion.
I understand, because if you're going to steal 21 trillion, then you have to have more treasuries outstanding than you're minting on your books.
It's a cartoon. It's very dangerous, and it's a cartoon, and people should be worried, and they should be doing something. But let's talk about just the last thing. I want to close out by, I just get your thoughts, because you're a smart person. People listen to what you say. Are they going to be able to cheat Joe Biden, who, I mean, come on, stop the cartoon. He is incompetent. He has got some sort of memory problem, some sort of disability, some sort of dysfunction. I'm not a doctor. I don't have to be to watch him say that Arizona is a city. So are they going to be able to cheat a guy? They're hiding in his basement. Terry McAuliffe said that we're glad to have Joe Biden hide in his basement. He's a top Democratic political operative. He said that. Are they going to be able to cheat Joe Biden in? Because that's what they have to do.
You know, Greg, I don't know what they're going to do, because Biden clearly is not physically strong enough to finish off the campaign, let alone get elected, let alone be president.
Yeah. We're voting for Kamala.
They're planning on switching.
We're voting for Kamala, in effect.
I doubt it. You know, I have one friend who describes her as the fourth chakra Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
So I don't know. My guess, you know, there have been a lot of rumors about switching in a dream team of, you know, Kerry and Romney, who both run for president, and one purportedly is a Republican, one's a Democrat. I don't know if any of those rumors are true, but I think the Democrats are going to have to come up with a plan B, because they won't be able, I don't think they'll be able to run a campaign, you know, on Zoom all the way through the election with Biden sort of not present and his wife speaking for him. I don't think that's going to work. So the question is, what's their plan B? And I don't know what it is. And it may be possible that they don't know.
Okay. All right.
I mean, so one thing I want to stress to you and to your listeners, we're in a process right now that's being governed by the central banks. And the central banks, if you read State of Your Currencies and you understand what they're trying to implement, both in terms of extending the existing system and bringing in a new system, things are very, very fluid. And when you are in a fluid process, trial and error at the very top, it means things in the middle and the bottom get wildly chaotic and fluid. Okay?
Yeah.
You know, we are literally all together in a 7 billion person global invention room, and we're making it up as we go. So it's a little bit like, you know, when our ancestors got on the prairie, you know, we're out on the prairie and it's going to be wild. So, and we're not going back to, you know, whatever things were a year or 2 or 3 ago, we're not going back. We're going forward, and it's going to be exceptionally different than our lives were a year or 2 ago. but you can understand it, and you can take action, to navigate and find the opportunities in it. I mean, here's the reality. It's like an infection that has to come to the surface. So this is World War III, and it's very possible that the good guys win. I've always told you, my vision of this is the story of Gideon, and I think the Midianites are going to kill each other, and it's on the rest of us to lead our way into a superior form of human civilization, which technology gives us the opportunity to do. It doesn't just give us the opportunity to centralize control, it gives us the opportunity to create unparalleled prosperity, but we have to be responsible, and we have to face and clean out the demons that we're dealing with here. So there's an incredible opportunity here, Greg, but we've got a lot of work to do.
Catherine Austin Fitts, the Solari Report is the publication. You're the publisher of that. Former Assistant Housing Secretary in Bush 41 administration, just so people know when you were talking about Assistant Housing Secretary, that's what you did. You managed a $300 billion portfolio back then. You go all over the world advising people. You're in demand. Your website is fantastic. As I always say, it's way better than mine. But the report is at Solari.com. The Solari Report. I'll put up the links so you can subscribe. There's also free stuff. You put a lot of free stuff on your site too. Solari.com. Catherine Austin Fitts.
A lot of
Thanks.
stuff.
Yeah, there is a lot of free stuff. The missing money is all that's free. But you put a lot of work into it. It's very detailed, and you get a spin. You get a view that you don't normally get, and you're pretty on target. You've been right, and a lot. And so, Catherine Austin Fitts, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Thank you, Craig. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you on. I got here 2 hours early. I thought, hey, are you going to be anyway? Thanks for coming on. I love having you on. You're fantastic. You're a brainiac. You're a good person. Thank you very much again for coming on USAWatchdog.com and sharing all your hard work and research and analysis that takes you weeks to put together. Thanks again for coming on and sharing some of that.
Well, the analysis is simple this time. Gold is going to keep having, it'll go up and down. It's going to be, the bull market will continue.
Okay. Thanks for being on.